personal page. And if you're watching on my page, you can say hello to us as well. Let me adjust this a little bit. I see someone's watching. Okay, let me open up the source sheet. Last night was a cool movie. Robert, it was a good movie last night. The men's club had a nice. Hello, how are you? The men's club had a very nice time last night. When Hector comes, when he shows up, we'll say thank you for you made it right. Yeah, the sound was good and all that. So yeah. Wow, packing in the table. Hello, everybody. Look, proud of table. It's good. How are you? Good evening. Okay, Serenity Grace, how are you? Do you know I love you in Jehovah? I thank you. Okay. Are we ready, my friends? You can stay right there. Robert can stay there. It's actually better when people are in front of me, not on the side. So then it's for those watching online. So Robert is in a good position. For those on the camera that appreciate I'm looking forward, Robert is good. Thank you for the drink. Hi. Bruce. No, Bruce and Robert are in perfect spots. You're doing good. L'chaim. L'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nihiyeh b'dvaro. Okay, sir. I'm glad I can make you happy. We can home now. We can say goodnight. Art Shavua Tov. And on my personal page, let's see. Oh, we got people watching. Hello, Ravit. Hello, Cheryl. Hello, Ella. Hello, Kim. Hello, Kim. Double Kim. Hello. Triple hello. Okay, she's all over. Kim is like, she's everywhere. Okay, it's good. It's good. It's good. She wants to comment. So, my friends, today we are going to talk about a very important topic. My throat, my nose look all congested, so I hope that I make it through and you can hear me loud and clear. But we'll persevere for you guys. Hopefully, the teaching will open my head as you know I'm feeling a little cloudy. Okay, well, and L'chaim and some team will help. Maybe, yeah. I still have one of my brother-in-laws. Over the second days of the holiday, we had like 47 people in my house staying. Not all sleeping there. Some sleeping by across the street, by a non-Jew in the neighborhood, by another, by whatever, like all over, by Marsha. We figured it out. Baruch Hashem have had space. So one of the last couples left now, like an hour ago, and the other one's leaving tomorrow morning. Then my house will finally be empty. Then it'll be empty. But at least last night all my kids slept in their beds again. So that was okay. Let me begin, my friends. Not with we're getting love from New Zealand. Wow, on lunch break. And Erev Tov Jared from Texas. And hello, Jessica Rodriguez. How could you have a question if we didn't start yet? Oh, not good. Just do it, Rabbi. It says, okay. And then I'm getting Spanish. Yo hablo poquito español. Okay, anyway. So today, instead of a joke, a true story that happened today. A guy came into the office. Actually, going to post a picture with him, but I forgot. A neighbor that once had kids in Hebrew school years ago bought him. He is a Holocaust survivor. And he wanted to know when is there going to be the Yom HaShoah service. But he's not looking to say Kaddish. He doesn't need to say Kaddish. He doesn't. So I told him to come tomorrow morning. We'll put on tefillin. Anyway, he sat in my office. I wanted to hear his story. I wanted to talk to him. It's a sad story. He's carrying a lot of anger and a lot of guilt. And without spending too long on the story, but there's actually a connection to the class, which is why I'm sharing this. But I'll just share the part that's really relevant. Basically, he grew up in Rome. And we don't know a lot about the Holocaust in Rome. And I actually Googled it after. I wanted to verify some details. He was living outside of the ghetto of Rome, but it happened to be a block and a half away. When he was 6 months old, his family went to go visit someone to get something from someone that lived in what's called the ghetto, which was a block and a half from his home. And it was actually the Black Shabbos. If you Google it, in October of 1943 was the raid of the Jewish ghetto of Rome, where they rounded up. My phone's over there, but I actually looked it up earlier. They I didn't pay attention to the exact numbers, but basically they rounded up all the Jews, mainly women and kids and all that. And his father hadn't been rounded up early because they had him in the ghetto. They were all rounded up, including his whole family. And they were put into some holding place. And there was a restaurant where they were all there. He's 6 months old. Doesn't remember this. He was here from his aunt. And he was crying and crying and crying. He was very hungry. And the guard couldn't get him to be quiet. So the mother said to him, what do you want me to do? He needs milk. I need to feed him. So the guard sent his mother with the baby across the street to there's a store to go get milk. And so his mother and his aunt went with the baby with him. At that moment, one of the cousins somehow like managed to go with him, and they managed to escape and get out of the building. But his father, his uncles, his cousins, 30 of his relatives were killed during the Holocaust. His father was one of 9. His father was taken. And he found out later from his cousin that survived that his father died in the death march. The very end of the war, when after there was a death march, his father made it till then. His father died on that march. He was 6 months old. They managed to escape. He ended up after the war in orphanage, very religious orphanage. His mother, who was alive, was not able to take care of him. Unfortunately, didn't get to the details, but he was basically abandoned. He grew up with no parents, not a father or a mother, from the age of 3. He was in the orphanage till 9 until 12. We got different. Not every detail. I told him for a long time. His mother came back, whatever, but she wasn't. He was basically in a very religious orphanage. He was like he knows a lot of Yiddish and like the Hebrew words. He's quoting me verses and Talmud Torah, and he's telling me the blessings. And then, make a long story short, his mother remarried someone that really didn't treat him very well. He got kicked out of the house. They came to America. He got kicked out of the house and back to Italy. Came back to America. Ended up in the American Army during Vietnam. He's serving in Vietnam. And the sergeant or the officer or whatever at one point like calls all the Jews out. So he called all the Jews. So he went to join the Jews. Now his last name is Italian. His last name is not Jewish. It's Di Pietro. It's an Italian name. And so the officer looks at him and says, "I said all the Jews. What are you doing here?" So he said, "I'm a Jew." And the officer gave him some comment you're an imposter. You just want to pretend. Come and get the extra grape juice like Friday night. And in fact, the entire time that he was part of this in this I guess regiment or in this troop, they had services every single Shabbat. Not once did he get called into the Torah. Not once. And later he found out that, and he knows fluent, he knows how to read the Torah beautifully. He did the Haftorah for his Bar Mitzvah. He knew how to read Hebrew and everything. He went to a religious orphanage. And he found out when the other soldiers told him that the chaplain, whoever, a guy in charge, doesn't think you're Jewish. That's why, I guess he had an Italian name. Wasn't the same officer, but had an Italian name. Whatever, he's from Italy. He doesn't, it wasn't like a Polish Jew or didn't speak Yiddish, really spoke Hebrew. And he took it very, very personally. And he told me, "This guy doesn't think I'm Jewish. I'm not Jewish. Fine, I'm not Jewish." Like he took it out now. The whole conversation for an hour with him, whatever. He didn't put on film, but even though he didn't put on film today, guess what? No one again. He's coming to my house for Shabbat dinner. but I spent a long time with him. I was really trying to get him to put on film for his father's memory. I was like really going at him. But what the reason why I'm sharing this story is because of how this comment that this guy in the army made, where the officer or the captain, whatever the official rank was, assumed that he's not Jewish based on his last name, and made some stupid comment, like I said, all the Jews should come here. Like, what are you coming here? You're not a Jew. Hurt him so deeply that now he's in his 80s. I forgot if he was 6 months old in 1943. So how old is he now? Whatever. He's still carrying with anger. He's angry. He's an angry person. He has some very derogatory things to say about Judaism. He's in a place of, I wasn't offended. I understand he's coming from a place of pain and dealing with a very difficult hardship. But a big part of the pain that he's carrying is what somebody said to him unwittingly, unknowingly, not trying to hurt him. An officer in the American Army who didn't, a Jewish officer, obviously, a sergeant who's a chaplain, and he's carrying that for decades and decades. He's still carrying that hurt. So good evening to all of you that are watching, including those whose birthday today, like Andrea. But today's Yom HaShoah, the day of the Holocaust Remembrance. I wanted to share a Holocaust story, but really I want to talk, and the whole class tonight is going to be about this power that our words can have, that even when you're making a simple comment, and it wasn't a planned comment, something the person thought about, or this officer, a sergeant, he definitely did not have intention to hurt anybody. I'm sure of that. He was trying to, separate the Jewish soldiers. The Messi was going to have whatever the Jewish soldiers were going to get. And I don't know if it was the same sergeant that said you're not a Jew, or was the same one that was the chaplain of the services or someone else. I'm not sure. I'm thinking about it now. I'm not sure if it's the same or a different person. But they didn't mean to hurt him knowingly. But sometimes, not sometimes, always, our words are very powerful. Sometimes, without meaning to, our words can have a deep, deep impact on somebody else, to the extent that even when they're still physically present amongst us, emotionally, they've checked out. Emotionally, we've created a distance and a sense of detachment, where even though if you were to take a picture of the room, you'd say, yeah, all these people are sitting in the room together. But that's only true from a very physical, superficial reality, that you see all these people sitting together. If you'd be able to look deeper into the souls of all the people sitting in the room, you would discover that some of them are indeed sitting together, and then one or two of them might be sitting in the same room, but actually sitting totally apart, totally alone, physically present, but emotionally and psychologically in a very distant, disconnected place from everybody else. And that is what we're going to talk about tonight, the power of our words to create that in the context of a fascinating mitzvah in this week's Torah reading, which is the Metzorah. I'll explain in 1 second. And then also the purification process of this person. So, what is the main theme of this week's Torah reading about? It's about a person, a man or a woman, who has a condition called tsaras. Now, tsaras is usually translated in English as leprosy, but leprosy is a very, very weak translation. Leprosy is somewhat similar to whatever tsaras would be. So in English, they needed an English word, so they called it leprosy, but it's not really leprosy. It was a unique, divine ailment that has no medical term, because it's not a medical condition. It's not a medical condition. I see that Joe Butler is watching. Was at Vietnam Seder services in 1969. I wonder if this guy was in Vietnam with you. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, good evening, everyone that's watching. So we have this Metzorah. Metzorah is the person afflicted with the condition called tsaras. Okay? The Metzorah. That's what we're going to refer to him or her as the rest of the evening, because that's the proper Hebrew word, the Metzorah, the person afflicted with this condition of tsaras. And the Torah says, what is the punishment? And there's a whole very complex process how to determine if a person indeed has tsaras or not. If they have these different signs, and there's more than one sign, this tsaras on the skin, tsaras on the bald parts of their head, tsaras on the burn, tsaras in their hair, different places. And then we'll also learn about tsaras in the clothing and tsaras on the walls of your house. So there's many different variations of how tsaras can manifest, how the symptoms can come out. But regardless, there's different details. Excuse me. The person has this condition. He comes to the Kohen and he says to the Kohen, to the priest, it looks to me like I have this condition of tsaras. And the Kohen looks and he marks exactly how big is the condition. I'm giving a very simplified explanation. And we quarantine him for a week. Again, not because this condition is like COVID, that it's contagious, but he has to spend the week alone, and then we examine him again. If the week later his condition has spread, we know he has tsaras. I'll get to what he does in a second. If it stayed the same, we quarantine him a second week. If it got less, then it was just a warning from God. He's not a full-fledged Metzorah. Got it? If after the second week the condition spread, now he has full-fledged tsaras. He or she is now a Metzorah. Got it? So let's skip all those details. The person now is officially deemed by the Kohen to be a person of tsaras, a Metzorah. What must happen to this person? Says the Torah, and if you're watching on my personal page, and by the way, happy birthday to all the birthday people watching us. If you're watching on my personal page, or if you have a Chumash at home, you can open up to this week's Torah reading, chapter 13 of Leviticus, verse 46, says the Torah, Kol yimei asher haneg aboy yitzma. All the days that the lesion is upon him, he shall remain unclean. It's meaning it's not a week long or 2 weeks long. It could be 3 days, it could be 7 days, it could be 3 weeks, it could be 3 years. However long he has this condition on his skin, he remains a Metzorah. He remains a person afflicted with this condition. He shall remain unclean. And all of that time that he is unclean, says the Torah, Tamehu, he is unclean. Badad Yeshev Michutz Lemachane Moshavo. He shall dwell isolated. His dwelling shall be outside the camp. This is very interesting. So what happens to this Metzorah? Because he has tsaras, and even though, as I told you, tsaras is not a contagious condition. Tsaras is not COVID. It's not, influenza or whatever. It's not a cold. Tsaras is a divine affliction. Nevertheless, says the Torah, what should be his punishment? He has to dwell alone outside the thing. And in fact, I don't have the verse here, but he would warn people a little later. Someone would come to him and come to talk to him. He had to say, Tame, Tame. He had to call out, I'm impure. Don't come close to me. Don't talk to me. Even he was not even allowed to dwell with other people that also had saras. Yes, Devorah.
So it means unclean is the same thing. It could be the same as impure.
Say again, the word impure.
Unclean, it could be the same over there like impure.
Yeah. The word is tameh. Here, this particular translation uses the word unclean. If I was writing the translation, I just copied this. But if I was writing the translation, I would have written impure. It's the same. Tameh is impure. Yeah. Okay. Now, so we have a very simple question. Why is the Torah forcing this Metzorah to dwell all alone outside the camp? Normally, when the person does a sin, what's their atonement? Teshuvah. Okay, very good. I should say or. One is teshuvah, repenting, praying to God, recognizing you did a mistake. In the Torah times, in biblical times, you bring an offering, correct? A sin offering, a guilt offering, a lashon talui, depending exactly what your sin was. Perhaps you got lashes, malchus. Not every sin you got an offering for. I'm not going to start going through all the different sins now, but some sins you had to bring an offering. Some sins wasn't an offering, but it was a lesser considered sin. You just had to bring, you got lashes. Again, different conditions, how many lashes. Some sins, you have to give a knas, financial retribution, to pay a fine. We don't find any other sin where you did the sin. Your punishment is you shall dwell alone outside the camp, being forced to tell anyone that comes close to you, stay away. Tame, I'm unclean or I'm impure. Not even to dwell and to live together with the other people that also have tsaras. So why is he forced to dwell alone, isolated, separated from everybody else? Does anybody know? Well, if you look in Rashi will tell us. Says Rashi, he shall dwell isolated, meaning that other unclean people shall not abide with him. Not only is he removed from the clean people, the pure people, even another person that also saras, they can't hang out together. Why? Our sages said, why is he different from other unclean people? They must remain isolated. By the way, if you touch a dead body and you're ritually impure, you don't have to isolate. You can hang out with other impure people. You can even hang out with pure people as long as you don't touch them. And So why is this person different? Says Rashi, and he's quoting from the Gemara, since with his slander he caused a separation, a rift between man and wife, or between man and his fellow. And therefore, he too shall be separated from society. Wow. What's Rashi telling us? Why is he dwelling alone? It's not random suffering. It's not it's not just really a punishment. It's a consequence that mirrors the damage that this person caused through speaking slander, through speaking negative about another person. So we should have clarified one thing. And maybe we should have said, what was the sin of the Metzorah? He spoke Lashon Hara, or she spoke Lashon Hara. They spoke slander. They spoke evil. They spoke negative. They spoke in a bad way about other people. And therefore, because they spoke bad about other people, God says what's going to be not just your punishment, but your cleansing process. Because in Hasidus and in Judaism, really, punishments from God are not me showing you I'm stronger than you. Right? When parents punish, there's two kinds of ways that parents punish. One is they get angry and they lose control and they slap whatever because they lost control. So they reasserted control. And one is where you're able to show consequences for your actions. So there's, okay, you did this is going to be the consequence. And there's a clear, logical give and take of you did something, so now you have to suffer for what you did, even though now you feel bad and you're crying, etc. So what we might call punishment, but really the consequence, and really the education and the lesson that this person who spoke slander about other people needs to learn is that your words cause a rift between others. And because you cause separation between others, that's why now you will be the one to experience what you created amongst others. Yes, Ravit, this is exactly correct. This is the result of Lashon Hara. Mary, God should bless you with only health and good things. Shalom, Nancy. And yes, happy birthdays. And all the love. Okay, hello, Alice from Maryland. You understand? It's a very, very powerful message here. God is, so to say, like the word punishment is the wrong word to use. It's an education. It's an education. By the way, the best education is one that's experiential, but you experience it. So if I tell you fire is dangerous, okay, fire is dangerous. And either you will or won't play with fire tomorrow when you have the chance. But if you burn yourself, now you've experienced that fire is dangerous, and you're getting much more careful with fire next time. That's an experiential form of learning, which is obviously the most powerful form of learning. Sometimes you can't always experience what you learn, but the more that your learning is hands-on, like the Passover Seder, the more that the storytelling is hands-on, you're not just telling a story, but you're eating the bitter herbs of our parents' slavery, and you're reclining like kings. You're experiencing it. You remember it much better. So this person that created separation between others is now being forced to experience what he created amongst others. And so now let's talk about this. It may sound a little extreme because after all, everyone talks about everybody. Isn't that what we do? We talk, we gossip, it's a little juicy, I didn't know there's a new word now. My youngest sister taught me there's something called tea. Not the kind of tea that Michael makes me, not this tea. My sister says to me, tell me, what's the tea? Yeah, I never knew this before. I'm already old when for all the older people that don't know the young people slang, I've officially made it there. I'm like, the tea, what's the tea? She wants to hear the tea. Yeah, that's what you talk. Yeah, okay, you want to know the tea. Okay. Alachaim want some tea. This is kosher tea. There's nothing.
I should hope so.
Yeah, I'm saying. So she wants to know the tea. So that's normal, right? And yet the Torah is telling us that sometimes speech can create distance. That speech can make two people sitting in the same room feel far apart from each other. You physically, I might be in the same room as you, but I'm far apart from you. And it changed. A husband and wife, look at the example that Rashi brought. He created distance between a husband and wife. Now, the husband and wife are still married. They're still living in the same house. They're still going to the same bedroom. Still driving the same car. You ever seen a husband and wife that are living together but are far apart from each other? It's very sad. You said that, yes, like I've seen it too. It's a purely, and it's emotional. It's not physical. I mean, the physical is there too, but it's an emotional distance. And the same thing can be between a man and his friend, between two people at work, between two people living near each other, that there could be a resentment and something in the air between them. And so what we're talking about over here, this prohibition is not when you talk too much per se. It's when a person gives words that can create distance between others and make someone feel separated, make someone feel isolated, make someone feel pushed out of the rest of the group and outside the camp. And therefore, because your words push someone outside the camp, not geographically outside the camp, but emotionally outside the camp, even though it's only in their minds, but in their minds, they're outside the camp, you need to now experience what it's like to be outside the camp. to feel all alone and have that FOMO. That's fear of missing out for the older people here. have that FOMO. Have that FOMO. What's happening in the camp because you're stuck outside. Got it?
But it doesn't mean they have to hear it. It just means it has to be said.
It had to have been said.
So a person could say it. Someone could say something about someone, but that someone didn't hear it.
Okay, so is lashon hara about the so when it says when you speak lashon hara, 3 people are impacted. 3 people are hurt by it or killed by it. The one that said it, the one that hears it, and the one that is being spoken about. The one that says it is killed. He's speaking evil words. The one that is being spoken about, he's being impacted, even if he doesn't know he's being impacted. People are thinking about him differently. So if me and you are talking about the Saul, right? So Saul might not know that we had a conversation about him, negative, which it's impossible to say something bad about Saul. I'm just hypothetically, if hypothetically we had something not nice to say about him. So even if he didn't know we had the conversation, but the way me and you now feel about him is going to subtly have an impact on the relationship. That's what we're trying to explain. There's a distance that's created not always through a physical pushing of someone away. The person is officially welcome to join us. We didn't kick him out. He might not even know, but he just feels subconsciously. You ever felt like you're not part of a group? No one said, now you don't know what they said privately amongst themselves or what they're thinking. And sometimes it is only in our own minds. Sometimes we imagine things that, but sometimes there's also a truth that we're imagining maybe a little bit, but also sometimes people are really carrying certain, even subliminal, subconscious vibes about you because they might even remember consciously, but they actually heard last week that you're actually stingy, selfish, whatever. So now they're sitting having conversation together. In the back of their mind, they're hearing that voice. Oh, she's a very stingy person. Right? That's exactly what we're trying to explain. Words can create distance. And the third person that gets killed is the one that is hearing it. That's what I wanted to really say. The one hearing it didn't do a sin, so to say. They didn't speak anything bad. They were just sitting there. Imagine all sitting in the room, right? Robert starts yapping. I can't imagine that either. And Robert says something not nice. All of us, we didn't sin. We would just happen to be sitting here. But the moment we've heard something negative about another person, we are now going to be carrying a certain psychological barrier between us, between me and Saul, whatever, whoever.
Or the person who said
it. If we don't know what the person said, but usually when the person says something, we feel a closeness to the one saying it, and the one that's being made fun of or being talked about is the one suffering.
What's the obligation to rectify?
Oh, we'll talk about how to rectify. Very good. So Steve, he wants to know tachlis. He wants to know the tachlis. How do we rectify it? So before I go further, I want to make the problem a little stronger for you, my dear. Okay, if you don't mind. So where are my notes? The Baal Shem Tov. I want you to understand the power of words. So it says, I'll tell you first the story. So the famous Hasidic story, where the Baal Shem Tov was once in Mezhebush, and he heard 2 local residents. They were arguing. They were arguing about whatever. And one guy got so angry, he said, "You're such a lowlife. You're such a da. If I could, I would tear you apart like a fish. Tear you apart." Obviously, Jews yeah. You say one more word, I'll bash your brains. And I don't know. So today we say bash your brains, and now I'm sounding young or I'm sounding old. I don't know. I'll bash your brains. I don't know what the young people today would say. I don't know. But yeah, bash your brains. Okay, fine. Okay. But Bruce's time is, I don't know. What did they say when you were young and you were talking tough on the subway? Whatever. They have the brass knuckles, whatever. So anyway, I got him excited. His brain started churning now. But so the point is, so back then, the expression, I'll tear you apart like a fish. I'll beat you up. I'll tear you to pieces. So Shem Tov came out of his room and he told everyone to form a circle. Everyone formed a circle, each putting their hands on top of the shoulders of the person next to them. Okay? So until the full circle formed, and Baal Shem Tov came and he finished the circle by putting his hands on the 2 people closest to where he was standing. There's a complete circle, everyone's hands on each other's shoulders. Baal Shem Tov told them all to close their eyes very tightly. And all of a sudden, the disciples, the students began to scream out in fear Because the moment they closed their eyes and Hashem put his hands on their shoulders, they were able to see the vision of how this person was actually tearing apart the other person like a fish, exactly like he had threatened. And then they all got scared. They opened their eyes. And Hashem said, you should know the power of your words. That when you say something, you create a reality. You create a reality. Our words have power, not just that you said, that's what we're trying to bring out, not just that I said something mean to you, and so now you're angry at me and you don't want to talk to me. Lashon hara is not that I cursed you out to your face. Lashon hara is I told all these nice ladies about you. That's Lashon hara. And when I do that, the speech that I create about a person who didn't even hear what I was saying has created a distance. Tell you something beautiful. There's a verse in Tehillim that compares our words to arrows and to coals. It's a verse. Compares our words, the power of a word is like an arrow and like a smoldering coal. Why like an arrow? So the Medrash explains, what's an arrow? An arrow is I'm standing here, I can shoot an arrow 100 feet away and I can kill someone over there. I don't have to go there to kill that person, God forbid. I can stand here, I just send my arrow. And so too, a person's words can cause damage 100 miles away. I don't have to go there to hurt you or hurt that person. I could be standing here, speaking here to the people here, and my words here to all of you here can hurt a person that's over there. Like an arrow here can hurt someone there. Secondly, it's like a coal, a smoldering coal. What is a coal? A coal, the outer surface of the coal looks like it's already died. But underneath, the embers are still glowing. Sometimes words can have damage where even though it seems like what I said, he forgot about it already a long time ago. That was 6 months ago I said that. They're still holding on to something from 6 months ago. They get a life, right? But guess what? Sometimes those words are like smoldering coals that can be sitting and burning and burning and burning. Years later, this person sitting in my office said he's in his 80s, and he's still angry about a comment that his sergeant said to him when he was in Vietnam 60 years ago. So that's the power of words. So now we come to the punishment. What does the Torah say we need to do to such a person? We need to put him outside the camp. Why outside the camp? As I already kind of explained, it's a means of an education. I want you to read the Rambam. We're going to read the Rambam together. The Rambam explains, if you remember, before I read the Rambam, just to give you some background. I told you there's many forms of tzaras. There's tzaras on your skin, on your hair, on your bald spots, on your clothing, on the walls of your house. Why is so many different forms of tzaras in so many different places? So skip the next text because it's out of order. But go to the bottom of the page where it says the Rambam, Maimonides, Hilchais Tumas Tzaras, in chapter 16, he explains as the Rambam as follows. This change that affects clothes and houses, which the Torah describes with the general term of tzaras, is not a natural occurrence. Instead, it is a sign and a wonder prevalent among the Jewish people only. The Jewish people get this sickness to warn them against Lashon Hara and undesirable speech. When a person speaks Lashon Hara, the walls of his house change color. If he repents, the house will be purified. If, however, he persists in his wickedness until the house is destroyed, the leather implements in his house upon which he sits and lies change colors. If he repents, they will be purified. If he persists in his wickedness until they are burnt, the clothing he wears changes colors. If he repents, they will be purified. If he persists in his wickedness until they are burnt, his skin undergoes changes and he develops tzaras. This causes him to be isolated and for it to be made known that he must remain alone so that he will not be involved in the talk of the wicked, which is folly and Lashon Hara. What's the Rambam saying very clearly over here? There's a progress where God gives us increasingly more personal warning signs to recognize the impact that our words are having. First on our houses, on our furniture, on our clothing, until eventually a person does not begin to recognize the dangerous separation and impact that his words are having in isolating somebody else and making them feel like a stranger outside the camp, then you yourself will have to end up outside the camp saying, I am impure, don't come near me. So a person can understand the mistakes that he made to change his ways, to no longer be involved in the talk of the wicked, which is folly and lashon hara.
So it only happened in the Lord. It didn't happen that way for Miriam. Didn't she just?
Miriam got tsaras, yeah, but it was right away on her skin. Because, and by the way, the story of Miriam, where she got tsaras, is an excellent example. I wasn't going to bring it up, but yes, Miriam spoke bad about her brother, not to her brother. She spoke bad about her brother to her other brother, to Aaron. Miriam was speaking to Aaron about Moshe. And because she spoke bad to Aaron about Moshe, God got angry, and God right away gave her tsaras. Immediately she saw the separation that her words caused and the danger of that. Okay, now, so before I get to the answer, the purity that Steve is looking for, I want to make sure it's obvious, in case it's not already obvious, how relevant this Metzorah is to me in the Bible. I want you can read this entire Torah reading and say, well, this is very, very technical, very abstract, because today we don't have a skin condition called tsaras. We don't suffer from this problem. I don't know what they're talking about. And you can read this entire Torah reading with complete disengagement because the details are very confusing and say, this is a Torah reading that's not relevant to me in life. He afflicts us in a different way. But I want to make sure that the emotional reality of being outside the camp is clear to us. Because this almost illness, if you will, is perhaps one of the most prevalent illnesses that exist in our society today. If you had to label, and there's no, I don't know if there's a medical diagnosis. I mean, there is loneliness, anxiety, but if you had to label, feelings of people, the people in the world, in our society, in our community, in our circles, that physically seem like they're present, but on a deeper emotional level feel like they're outside the camp and feel isolated and alone, is tremendous. Everyone in their own groups, in their own who it is or when it is that they feel alone and outside the camp. And we have to realize the power of our words that creates that. The reason why a person feels alone and outside the camp is because of the words they say. Our words have that power. Okay. And we have to also realize that very often we don't even realize how powerful our words are. Sometimes that distance, that separation, that barrier was almost by an accident. But the other person remembers it and they didn't forget. Okay. So now, Steve asked a very, very good question before. His question was, so before I go there, clear? Everything good? Any questions? No. Good? Okay. So now Steve's question was, how do you purify yourself from tsaras? Persons created separation and isolation to somebody else by their negative slander, by their lashon hara, by their evil gossip. I don't know if the word evil is right. It was just their fun gossip, their juicy gossip, their juicy tea. And now they themselves are suffering by being isolated, and they're experiencing the separation and loneliness that they had created among somebody else. So what's the solution? The Torah does not leave him outside the camp forever. How long does he remain outside the camp for? Until it's gone. Which means until he recognizes the mistake that he made, and until he says, I've done something wrong, and he does teshuvah in his heart, and God knows what's in his heart, and God says, this affliction that was on your skin will go away, the Kohen will come, the Kohen sees indeed the affliction has left the skin of the person, they're welcome to come back into the camp. And then begins the, so to say, the reintegration period. Everybody knows. But there's a process, there's a purification process by which this person is now able to, so to say, be purified and enter into the camp. What is a purification process? So let's read. Let's see what the Torah tells us this person needs to do. Says the Torah again, it's a long process. It's not so simple, but I'm going to only share the part where the Torah tells us how this is a purification process. So in chapter 14, verse number 4, the Torah tells us that after the person, basically the whole long process, he would come, they would check him, he would wait 8 days, he would shave all the hair of his body, He was completely shaven clean. And then he would come, the Kohen would say, okay, he's ready to bring an offering. And now he would bring the offering. What will be his offering? He will bring 2 live, clean birds, meaning they had no blemishes, 2 birds, live. A cedar stick, a strip of crimson wool, and hyssop. Now, what would he do with this? Before I go further, I didn't win the text. Basically, he would slaughter 1 bird. He would put the blood of the bird into this live water. I say live water, pure water, means water that came from a living source of water, from a well, from a spring. He would then mix in, he would tie together a hyssop. Hyssop is like a very lowly branch together to a cedar stick with this red crimson wool. He would then dip this tied together bundle of hyssop and cedar in the water that had the blood of one of the birds that had been slaughtered, and this blood in the water. He would use that to sprinkle the water onto the Metzorah, and then the other bird was left free. Was left to fly away. Now, what's the spiritual messaging for us from these 2 live birds, the cedar stick, the strip of crimson wool, and the hyssop? So how is this part of the purification process? How are these objects going to help the person learn how to be a better member of society, where their words don't create distance from others, but rather their words create closeness and the bonding and sense of closeness? What do these items represent? So Rashi tells us clean birds. Why do they have to be clean birds? Excluding an unclean bird, meaning a non-kosher bird. Because these lesions of tsaras come as a result of derogatory speech, which is done by chattering. I should have asked you before I read further. Let me let you think for a second. What do you think birds represent? Birds. What are birds? Chitter chat. That's why there's no mistake when Elon Musk he didn't make Twitter. Who made Twitter? Jack Dorsey, right? Who founded Twitter? Jack Dorsey. When he made Twitter, what was the icon of Twitter? A bird. Because a bird, Twitter, tweet, right? That's a bird. So that need to just talk and share and gossip and is a bird. And he was Jack Dorsey. I don't know a lot about him, but he was right on target. Right on target when he used the bird as the icon of like the most, maybe after Facebook, of Lashon Hara, like up the gazoo, you know what I'm saying? Where you just literally get to share whatever you want. And so you need to use birds. Before I go open back inside, what do you think a hyssop is? I'll give you a hint, the opposite. What's a cedar? A very high tree. And the hyssop is a very low, it's not a tree, it's a lowly like weed that grows. I don't know if it's a weed, but it's an herb that grows very, very low. The same with the crimson wool that comes from the worm. Let's read it inside. It says Rashi to us, clean birds means since his tsaras came as a result of derogatory speech, which is done by chattering. Therefore, for his cleansing, this person is required to bring birds, which twitter constantly with chirping sounds. So you have 2 birds representing the way he was chattering and talking about other people. He brings a cedar stick because lesions of tsaras came because of haughtiness, symbolized by the tall cedar. Why do we talk about other people? At its root, it gives a certain sense of like we feel good about ourselves. There's a certain human condition, could be a whole class of its own, that when we put someone else down, and we talk bad, or we talk derogatory about somebody else, even though the fact that if I say something not nice about you doesn't make me a better person. I'm not nicer because I said you're mean. I'm not more generous because I said you're stingy, right? I'm the same generous and not generous, whether or not if I have a story about how you tried to save 3 cents and you went around the parking lot and you were crawling on your hands and knees trying to find a nickel you dropped. And I tell the whole story, how you were crawling around looking for I know a rabbi gave me a whole story, but a guy I know, he was in a rental car. They were late for their flight. This is a wealthy guy, and the guy he lost change fell out of his pocket, and they're late for their flight. And this guy is looking through the car trying to find the change that fell out of his pocket, and like, so he tells you the whole story how you're looking for your change. Does that make the other person a more generous? No. I think how that person is, but it doesn't make them a more generous person. But yet somehow, subconsciously, by me telling or by a person telling a story, how you were cheap over 5 cents, because like, look at me, I'm better than that. I'm not that kind of person that would be wasting time looking for the lost change. I'm a better kind of person, right? That's subconsciously. When I talk about how you're whatever, you're this and that, the fact that I'm able to put you down for it and make laugh about it means because I'm not like that. I'm better than that. So a person, the root of our talking about other people in many ways begins with a sense of ego, maybe an insecure sense of ego, but the sense that I feel haughty and I feel my greatness over in comparison to you, which is why I feel qualified to talk about you and to say negative things. Or even if it's not negative, just a story about you because of I'm better than you. Okay? So that's one side. We have the cedar, which represents the haughtiness of the person talking bad about others. And then what else do we have? We have the crimson wool. Where does that come from? A worm. What makes red dye? The worm. And the hyssop is very lowly. So the remedy that he may be healed of the tsaras is he must humble himself from his haughtiness, just as symbolized by the worm and the lowly hyssop. We must tell you also the red represents sin. The color of red is the color of sin. Red is the color of sin. This very famous verse where God says, if your sins will make you red like crimson wool, I will whiten you like snow. It's a famous verse. Im yadimu katoila katsemer yiyu. You'll be like wool, not like snow. And I'll pour upon you my pure waters, whatever. So the point is, what's the point over here? What's the purification process that we're discovering over here? A few things. First thing is to recognize it's not enough to just say, I made a mistake, I did tshuva, let me rejoin the camp. If you create a distance of separation, you now need to go through a rehabilitation process to recognize that you did something wrong that needs to be atoned for. So it's not enough to say, okay, the legions are gone, let me go back home. No, you have to go through an 8-day process. It was shaving, you came back, all that.
Even a woman is before shaved.
That's a good question. I don't think so, actually. I don't know. It's a good question. I have to double check. But then the Torah is also saying, but there is return, right? The Torah believes in return. Torah says you could come back to the camp, but you got to change. So first we have the birds. And the birds are the idea of a reflection and a mirror of how I spoke. Remember, this is meant to be an experiential learning experience. So when you're holding 2 birds in your hand, what are these 2 birds representing? The power of my speech. And what do we do with these 2 birds? One we slaughter, spill his blood. That's the blood that was spilled. That's the blood which you can now sprinkle on you as part of your purification process. And the other bird, set free. Set free to go and to roam the words. So repair begins when the speaker of gossip no longer says, it's only words. But rather when you say, no, the word, look at the words. And my words can fly away. Right? My words can fly away. Where's the bird going to fly to? Anywhere. It's a beautiful story about this person who came to, I don't remember, Chavetz Chaim, who was known for the stories about Lashon Hara, and he said, I need a tikkun, a rectification. I spoke bad about somebody. If I remember correctly, he accused him of something, and then it turned out that what he accused him of, he was actually wrong, and this person was innocent, and the accusations had been incorrect. And now he felt really, really bad that his accusation, that this guy was a thief or whatever it was, and he told the whole town, and now it's too late. So the rabbi, the very wise rabbi, says, you want the rectification, an act of tikkun, an act of atonement for what you said about this person? Here's what you need to do. I want you to go home and bring me your best down pillow. Now, today we have like all synthetic materials, but a pillow was all feathers, right? Down blankets are all down. I actually have a down blankets because my wife's grandmother was Russian. Thought when a couple gets married, you're a down blanket. I was like, that's I was moving to Florida, but her grandkids got down blankets. That was her act of grandmotherly love. So we wouldn't be cold in the winter. So you have a down blanket, right? A down pillow full of feathers. He brings the rabbi said, bring a pillow. Sounds easy so far. Imagine if the rabbi said, come to class with a pillow tonight. He comes to the rabbi's house with a pillow. The rabbi takes a knife, cuts open the pillow. So I want to go outside and scatter all of the feathers to the wind. When you scatter every last feather out of this pillowcase, come back. Guy goes outside and like a little kid, exploded all the feathers. And then he comes back to the rabbi. The rabbi says, now I want you to go and collect every single feather that you just scattered into the wind. And when you have collected every single feather, that's when you will have achieved your tikkun, your rectification for the slander and the negative things you said about this person that you falsely accused. He said, Rabbi, that's impossible. How am I going to gather every single feather? The wind already blew them everywhere. There's no way in the world I can gather every feather. They're scattered everywhere. I don't even know where they all went. Says the rabbi. Aha. And now you understand where your words went, or you don't understand. They're scattered. You don't know where your words went anymore. They're gone. Once it's out of your mouth, you never know who heard it, who repeated it with a little addition of a little mustache, and then who gave the mustache a little goatee, and then a little a beard, till now it's a wise old wizard, the story, you don't know where that story that you started, where it's gone to, where those feathers have flown to in the wind, it's gone. You can never get those feathers back. You'll never be able to take back the word you said about that person. And so this is the one bird we slaughter. One bird, we put the blood, we sprinkle that blood of the dead bird upon us. And the other bird is sent free and loose as a reminder that the words spread, the words move, the words keep on going. They keep on making noise. Even after he said them a long time ago, the words keep on speaking. Okay. Yes? Then we have the cedar and the hyssop. The cedar, we said, stands for haughtiness. What's the remedy to fix yourself from feeling this superiority that you can talk down and talk bad about other people? The hyssop. The tikkun, the fixing of the haughtiness of the cedar is the humility and the lowliness of the hyssop, the small little weed, the grass, it's a herb, whatever it is that grows. So first you have to realize your words have power. Stop talking bad. We thought of one word, and then you have to humble yourself. To humble yourself like a hyssop and to go to do teshuvah. This is the process. And I think for us, this is a very, 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 very important lesson to realize that the story, when you're reading this week's story reading, is a lot of details, but at its core, it's about the education of a person who didn't realize the power of his words to separate and create, so to say, psychological barriers of the camp and psychological city borders where someone else can be sitting on the seat right next to you but feel totally outside the camp because of the slander that was said about them. And to realize the power of our words to separate, but also the power of our words to bring together. So I'll end up with one more story with Rabbi Shalom Ber Lifshitz, who was a rabbi in Eretz Yisrael in Israel, who came to America to fundraise. He had a lot of institutions in Israel to fundraise for, so he came on a trip for a week or whatever it was to America. And actually, that trip, his main target was going to be in Canada, Montreal, maybe Toronto. And so he flew into New York on Thursday. He came to, or early in the week, spent a few days in New York, fundraising in New York. And then he was planning on going on Thursday night to Montreal, go for Shabbos, spend Shabbos with the community there, whatever time that week, and then from there, you go back to Israel. Thursday night, he's about to go, he gets a message from the Rebbe that the Rebbe wants him to go stay in New York for Shabbos, and specifically to go to the home of an old classmate of his. The Rebbe told him the name of a classmate, Rabbi Lifshitz, from years before in yeshiva, that this person was going through a very difficult time, was very, very lonely, And the Rebbe said that Rabbi Lifshitz should speak to him and, encourage him and just befriend him and bring him close. So Rabbi Lifshitz, he knew who the guy was, but he didn't consider himself a close friend of this person. He obviously didn't understand how much the other person felt that he was a close friend. I'm sure we have all experienced that. And I have, more than once where someone you barely know or you barely feel close to, they tell you how close they feel to you. Like, really? Like, you feel close to me? Like, I only saw you. I have as a rabbi. I guess you have it a lot more as a rabbi. But so people don't come to show. Like, obviously you find out from them. Like, oh yeah, they love you. They think you're their rabbi. It's good to know. It's too bad they didn't tell me that. But okay, that's lashon hara the good way. Anyway, but this person obviously somehow the rabbi knew that they were classmates, and this person was alone. And so even though he had already made plans to travel at night this morning to go to Montreal for his fundraising and all that, he right away canceled his plans, bought another ticket for Sunday, stayed Shabbos in New York. He went to go visit with this guy Friday night, and they got on Shabbos and spoke to him a few different times and was able to have a tremendous impact on him. And then after Shabbos, he wrote a letter to the Rebbe before he went to New York, or, giving a report that he stayed for Shabbos, giving a report. He stayed for Shabbos, and he met with the guy Friday night. He went to get to his house on Shabbos afternoon and spent time with him and spending, And the Rebbe responded to Rabbi Lifshitz, the exact word was something along the lines that your impact, you don't know the impact that you have, and because of your sacrifice to not go to Montreal, but to stay here for this person, God will reward you with a lot of blessings and successes and all that, etc. But the point is, sometimes our words can be dangerous. Our words can be barriers that separate people. And sometimes we may not even realize the impact that a nice word can have. Sometimes we can't even begin to fathom how one conversation, one time I go over to your house to talk to you, to engage you, to one time I invite you to come sit next to me for the Kiddush. Come, I ask you, how are you feeling? How's your puppy? How's your this? How's your daughter? I heard you were sick. I heard you, and just one conversation, just one act of words to bring close, to take people that might be sitting here, but emotionally might be feeling like they're outside the camp. Remember, it's psychological, it's emotional, it's inside their hearts. And to create conversation, to engage people, and to use words of love and endearment and positive words and empowering words. We can't begin to imagine how powerful our words can be to uplift somebody, to bring them up, to make them feel not that they're outside the camp, but that you can change their whole lives because now they feel I'm wanted, I'm included, I'm inside the camp, how much impact that can have, as Rebbe told Rabbi Lifshitz about his spending time with this person. And that, my friends, is a very powerful, mean and valuable lesson for us from the Metzorah, who's outside the camp, and our job to bring people inside and together with us. Good night, my friends. Andrea says, Shira, thank you for a wonderful class. Andrea says that she had a person talk bad about her, and all of her teeth fell out. Wow. I know a dentist. Okay, that's pretty bad. Art Toda Rabba, thank you. Philip wants to know, from Metzorah is a point to the faithful toward the significant.
We also have a story about the guy who was stealing, and he wasn't stealing, right? And then he closed his business and leave town. And
Yeah.
do you remember the story?
Yes. He was, and then the rabbi found the money in his thing. So yes, there's another story in honor of Michelle. So Michelle's reminded of a story.
What's the story you told?
It's a story about a person who lives in the town. I don't know which town. And he went to the rabbi to borrow 500, whatever he needed to borrow money for his business. And eventually he was able to, was doing okay. He came to the rabbi to pay back the money. And the rabbi was deeply engrossed in studying the Talmud when he came. And he came to give the rabbi the money. And I know this happened to me. Like people like somebody comes in, I'm in the middle of something. My brain is, if you're focused on what you're doing, like someone comes to you. So the guy came and gave the rabbi the money. So Rabbi, this is the $500 that I owe you for whatever. Mr. Sherna prom. Put it. He didn't even pay attention. They didn't register. Put it into the back of the Gemara, whatever. And he kept on studying. Anyway, 2-3 weeks later, he's going through it. A month later, he's going through the records. Sees this guy owes money. Sends him a message. He comes to him and says, you owe still the 5,000 ruble, whatever the money was. And I said, what do you mean? I paid you. He says, no, you didn't. He says, yeah, I came to your house. I gave him. He says, I don't remember it. It's not written down in the books. I don't have a record of it. It's not written down. Back and forth. The rabbi has no memory. The guy says, I swear to you, I promise you I paid you. The rabbi says, I don't have the money. I don't have any record. I don't remember you coming to me. So what do you do if you have a debate? You go to a din Torah. You go to court. Now, first of all, the simple, whatever, tailor, whatever he was, and the shopkeeper and the rabbi who's going to, but besides about Jewish law, if you have no witnesses, you have no proof, no testimony, then your word's not accepted. He had no witnesses to the fact he returned the money. And so the court ruled that he still owes the money. And by now already became a whole thing that this guy, how could he do that? He's calling the rabbi a liar. He went to court against the rabbi. And by now, no one wanted to do business with him. No one wanted to talk to him. And he owed the money. He tried scrounging this, that, and it was very, 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 very difficult. No one wanted to give him any of the money. No one wanted to do business with him. And he became like the outcast. He took the rabbi to court. Like, the whole community supported the rabbi. And eventually his business closed. His business failed. And he moved out of town, ashamed, embarrassed, like an outcast. Sometime later, a few months after that, the rabbi is learning one night. And he comes to the same Talmud he was learning 2 years before, whatever it was. And he opens up the book and he sees 5,000 ruble. 5,000 ruble. What's 5,000 ruble doing? And all of a sudden it hits him. This is the money that guy gave me that he's been swearing and promising. I was studying Talmud and he gave it to me. I had no recollection. I don't remember. I see the money sitting here. This is his money. He's so full of guilt and shame that he goes running immediately, harnesses a horse and wagon to go to the next town to personally ask for forgiveness from this guy that he accused and to return, obviously, the $5,000. But he wants forgiveness because he realizes, he knows that he hurt this guy. He destroyed his business and everything. So he comes to this man and he says, I just found the money. Obviously, you were right and I was wrong. And I accused you of being a liar and all that and saying that you paid me. You didn't pay me when you said you paid me. I'm asking you for forgiveness. So the man says to the rabbi, what is forgiveness? What is you asking me for forgiveness now? Help me. It's too late. My family name is destroyed. Does anyone in the city know that you came to me in a different town to ask for forgiveness? My livelihood is ruined. I had to close my business. I had to move in shame from the place where I grew up, my hometown, to a new city where no one knows, to start from scratch. It doesn't help me, your forgiveness. It's too late. The damage has already been done. And the rabbi realized that he's right. Damage had been done. He was thinking, what could I do to make it right to this family that I caused so much damage? And then he had an idea. He came back to the guy and he said, I want to make a shidduch between my son or my daughter and your son. You have a child of marriageable age. I have a child. Let's make a shidduch between our children. We'll make a marriage. That will be the ultimate sign to everyone. They'll see that I'm marrying into you, my kid, marrying your family, that you're indeed a good person, an honorable person. That will give you, credence. You mean mechutin of the rabbi in the community once again. And they made that shidduch. I'm not mistaken. One of the great rabbis was born from that. By that, I don't remember the details exactly, but that is the story that you are referring to. And they bonus stories for those of you who stick around in honor of Michelle. Yes. And now I want to thank you to Saul. Saul is the best. So next Sunday, first of all, we'll be having a beautiful lecture with Bar Cooperstein, 738 days in Gaza. Be a fascinating talk. If you didn't sign up yet, you still could do so. That'll be this coming Sunday. And then Tuesday, April 19th, April 21st, Tuesday, we have a new JLI course called For All Humankind. Very, very interesting course on the universal values of Judaism and what Judaism's message is to the world. Meaning, not only what does Judaism say to the Jew, how to keep Shabbos, how to keep kosher, how to be more moral and ethical, but what are the universal teachings that God wants, all humanity to know and to live by, Jews and non-Jews alike. And this is really a course for any human being that wants to follow in the ways of God, Jew or non-Jew. That's starting next week, Tuesday, May 21st. If you need a scholarship, please come to me. April, thank you. April 20. Today I texted someone that I'm available on Sunday, May 26th. He's like, April, May 26th? Like, yeah, May 26th. April. Yeah. Anyway, so April, yes, thank you. April 21st, 7:30 p.m. You can sign up online at mychabadcenter.org/JLI. Again, mychabadcenter.org/JLI, or you can send me a message. And it will not be on Facebook. It'll only be on Zoom and in person. But that'll be a great class of, if you're ever sitting on Facebook and some guy gets into the whole argument with you about Jews or whatever, not that there's any value in arguing on Facebook, but if you're having not Facebook, if you're ever speaking to your coworker and having a neighbor, having coffee with a non-Jew that's a friend of yours, and they're a nice, sincere person, not like some idiot on Facebook posting stupid memes and celebrating the death of Israeli soldiers, saying a normal, nice human being that's not Jewish that wants to understand what does Judaism say to them is this is an amazing course. So we started preparing it. That's next Tuesday. There is going to be class next Monday, Art. I don't know the topic yet, but there will be class next Monday. And then also we're going to JLI, we're going to Shabbat in the Heights on May 1st.
Yes.
May 1st and May 2nd, etc., May 3rd. And the Monday after that, which is May 3rd or May 4th, is Lag BaOmer. Is May 4th, Lag BaOmer. So we'll do like a bonfire. I'm not sure exactly if we'll do like something before. I'm not sure what we're talking about today. So, or some marshmallows. Maybe we'll do something a little bit bigger. If someone wants to sponsor, we'll do something nice for Lag BaOmer and get a big crowd. Okay? That, my friends, is the schedule for the next few weeks. Laila Tov. See you hopefully next Sunday and next Monday and next Tuesday for JLI. Thank you, Sal, for reminding me. And God bless you all. Before Shleimer, is that from Mirovit? I survived. I made it through. I made it through. That's right. My throat hurts. It's okay. I've done worse. Laila Tov, my friends. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Jamie. I'm glad you enjoyed. Ella, thank you very much for your kind words. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Mindy. Thank you, B'ezrat Hashem. Thank you, Kareem. I'm glad you enjoyed. Thank you, Shira. Thank you. Oh, yeah, that's Andrew with her teeth falling out of the... Okay. And Carmen, the link for Tuesday is mychabadcenter.org/JLI. I'm going to reply. mychabadcenter.org/JLI. I just sent it to you, Carmen. So look at the link. Okay. I'll post it again. Laila Tov, my friends. And hopefully we'll see you on Tuesday on Zoom. It will be 19 new comments. 1 second, 19 new comments. L'chaim. Okay, good night, my friends. Laila Tov. Let me end this. How do I finish? Is it finishing? Yes, the whole line of people.